Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India hails the US decision to designate the Resistance Front as a foreign terrorist organization, terms it a timely and important step reflective of deep cooperation on counter-terrorism. US calls the Resistance Front a front and proxy of Lashkar-e-Taiba. Marco Rubio says the move reinforces Trump's demand for justice for the Pahalgam attack. TRF twice claimed responsibility for April 22nd Pahalgam attack that killed 26 tourists. The terror organization is also involved in numerous other terror-related activities. In yet another test of its missile prowess, India successfully tests short-range ballistic missiles Prithvi 2 and Agni 1 of Odisha coast, demonstrating credible strategic deterrence capability. India's first indigenously designed and built diving support vessel INS Nistar joins Indian Navy at a ceremony in Visakhapatnam. The United States Department of State has designated the Resistance Front, or the TRF, as a foreign terrorist organization and as a specially designated global terrorist. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also termed it as an offshoot of banned terror organization Lashkar-e-Taiba. India has welcomed the move, calling it a timely and important step. India has welcomed the decision of the United States Department of State to designate the Resistance Front, or the TRF, as a foreign terrorist organization and as a specially designated global terrorist. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar hailed the move in a post on social media platform X. In a statement, Ministry for External Affairs also said the designation of TRF is a timely and important step reflecting the deep cooperation between India and the United States on counter-terrorism. The MEA further said that India will continue to work closely with its international partners to ensure that terrorist organizations and their proxies are held accountable. The US government designated the Resistance Front, an offshoot of the Pakistani extremist group Lashkar-e-Taiba, as a foreign terrorist organization over the dastardly terror attack on April 22nd in Pahalgam in Kashmir that killed 26 innocent people. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement that decision enforces President Donald Trump's call for justice for the Pahalgam attack. Rubio called TRF, which emerged in 2019, a front and proxy for Lashkar-e-Taiba. The TRF has been involved in numerous terror-related activities, including the heinous attack on civilians in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd April 2025, for which it twice claimed responsibility. India has consistently emphasized the need for global cooperation in the fight against terrorism and dismantling of terror infrastructure. Bureau Report, DD India. And India hailed the US move to designate Pakistani group, the Resistance Front, as a terrorist organization, asserting that it is a strong affirmation of India-US counter-terrorism cooperation. In a social media post, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar said, and I quote him here, appreciate Secretary of State Marco Rubio and US State Department for designating TRF, a Lashkar-e-Taiba proxy, as a foreign terrorist organization and specially designated global terrorist. It claimed responsibility for the April 22nd Pahalgam attack. Zero tolerance for terrorism. Separately, India's Ministry of External Affairs has issued a statement saying, and I quote, the government of India welcomes the decision of the United States Department of State to designate the Resistance Front as a foreign terrorist organization and as a specially designated global terrorist. We acknowledge and appreciate the leadership of Secretary of State Marco Rubio in this regard. The TRF, a proxy of the Pakistan-based terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, has been involved in numerous terror-related activities, including the heinous attack on civilians in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd April 2025, for which it twice claimed responsibility. India has consistently emphasized the need for global cooperation in the fight against terrorism and dismantling of terror infrastructure. The designation of TRF is a timely and important step reflecting the deep cooperation between India and the United States on counter-terrorism. India remains committed to a policy of zero tolerance towards terrorism and will continue to work closely with its international partners to ensure that terrorist organizations and their proxies are held accountable. All right, DD India's Amritpal Singh joins us to talk more on this. Amrit, with TRF now officially linked to Lashkar-e-Taiba, tell us, how does this expose Pakistan's use of proxy terror outfits?
That's right. I mean, the US has now come around to recognizing the fact that, Lashkar-e-Taiba just changes its skin. The animal remains there, and which is aided and abetted by the Pakistani establishment. So India has been consistently saying that this TRF is Lashkar-e-Taiba by another name. However, unfortunately, attempts to sort of get them sanctioned and censored did not achieve much success. But after the Pahalgam attack, India launched a concerted effort and a campaign to expose what they call the TRF or the Resistance Front, or it's also called by another name called the Kashmir Front, that it is the same Lashkar-e-Taiba which, after the US banned it and proscribed it, they just came up with a new name, and it was old wine in new bottles. So the US now sees point in that and realizes that, this is a proxy. They've used, these are not the words of the Indians, these are words of the Americans. Marco Rubio's statement that they are proxy of the Lashkar front and a proxy of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Abhishek?
Amrit, also MEA statement says that India has consistently emphasized the need for global cooperation in the fight against terrorism and dismantling of terror infrastructure. Can we expect other countries to follow the US lead?
Yes, the US being an important player in the global arena, India would want, such organizations to be censored by the UNSC. India had presented its case in the United Nations Security Council in the aftermath of the Pahalgam attack, saying that the TRF is clearly responsible. But, by the end of it, the UN Security Council is a political body. They have a friend of theirs. The Pakistanis have a friend of theirs, namely China, sitting there with a veto card. So one can't expect the UNSC, at least in the immediate future. If you remember, even on getting Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed proscribed, China tried to stonewall it many times. It was only after India's concerted effort and insistence and a sort of dogged effort were the Chinese not able to defend it and finally gave in, and the UNSC proscribed the JM. So now, one expects that the other partners of the Americans, especially the important countries of the West, would see a point and would follow suit.
Also, Amrit, you can answer this better. As far as past victories are concerned, India victories, Tavur Rana extradition, one of the examples. Is India now in a stronger position, maybe to shape global counter-terrorism policy?
India's, strategy is very, very clear. India has been telling the world consistently, from the attackers of 26/11 to various other terrorist incidents, right from Pathankot to Pahalgam, that Pakistan is the epicenter or nerve center of terror. It just obfuscates and says we are victims of terror, but allows its soil to be used, not only used, but actively aids and abets them. If you look at the funerals of those hit by the Indian strikes against terror camps, there were military officials offering namaza with known terrorists, Abdul Rauf, designated terrorist. So India consistently maintained that. The other part of the Indian story is that the Indians have realized there is no point just crying in front of them. Put our case out in front of the international community. Even tell Pakistan that please go ahead and destroy this infrastructure. If you don't, we will. So Op Sindoor, as at that time it was made very clear, is an ongoing operation. They plot anything against India. India retains and reserves the right to respond and respond in a manner and time of its own choosing. So clearly there is a shift of strategy that exposed them at various international fora, including the UN, bilaterally, FATF, all that it takes. And if they hit you, hit them back even harder.
Amrit, last question before we leave you. Can this decision influence the Financial Action Task Force or other international bodies' stance on Pakistan?
India has been consistently maintaining that. Even when the IMF was giving its latest grant, India told them that they are lying to you. This is not for getting themselves back on their economy on the track. They don't care, unfortunately, about their own people. Their own people are starving to death. The economy is in a mess. But they route this money, or at least a part of this money, to fund terror activities against their own neighbors, including India. So, and this has been the consistent refrain of even the Afghans. Look at the Taliban. They were trained in the madrasas of Pakistan. Today, Afghanistan is saying that the Taliban is telling them very clearly that, if you think you can mollycoddle us and remotely run us, forget it. We will not fall in for your designs. And so, the world very clearly sees it. Yes, but geopolitics plays. I think slowly and steadily the case against them will be built in the FATF, because the world has seen through their, shade of lies and obfuscation. And I think if India keeps its concerted effort on, Pakistan shall be, if not, brought to the book, at least will be on a very, very weak footing.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for the time being, Amritpal. But yes, we'll keep taking updates from you. Retired wing commander and defense expert Praful Bakshi strongly criticized the TRF, describing it as a manifestation of radical Islamic ideology that, according to him, cannot be eradicated since Pakistan's ruling ecosystem is built upon and sustained by it. He further emphasized that India must adopt an uncompromising approach similar to that of the United States, where national interests are never sacrificed. Take a listen.
Islam, radical Islam, is a radical thought process of a radical Islam which will never be erased, because Pakistan's ruling party, a ruling group, army, is based, their work, their existence is based on the strength of the terrorism, which creates their input, they create their entry into Kashmir, which keeps the Kashmir movement alive as far as which favors Pakistan, what they say, their narrative alive, and Pakistan army remains in power, which they have to, because they are controlling 85% of the Pakistan's commerce. So this is what the whole equation is. America will see where its interest lies, and if I was America, I will do the same thing. You have to look after your national interest, and India must look after its national interest, and India's interest is, if we have said terrorism is all bad, let's go all out. First thing is that terrorism will only get into India through the terrorist cells, supporting cells. We should start wiping them out with vengeance now. Which is Kashmir to Kanyakumari, we should start under the movement of Sindoor, Operation Sindoor. That was the #1 requirement, followed by acquiring POK. We have to continue doing this.
And Shesh Paul Vaid, former Jammu and Kashmir DGP, praised External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar following the United States designation of TRF as a terrorist organization. He hailed the move as a significant diplomatic victory for India and urged that the next step should be pushing for a United Nations designation of TRF as a global terrorist entity linked to Pakistan.
Basically, it's the front of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, just a name change, because Pakistan wants to mislead the world. And I think with China's help, they were blocking it, and US has done it. I think our next effort should be to have it designated by the United Nations, and I think huge diplomatic victory for India. Hats off to Dr. S. Jaishankar and his team.
And earlier in a statement released on Thursday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the terror outfit as a front and proxy of Lashkar-e-Taiba, a UN-designated terrorist group that is based in Pakistan. He further added in a statement that these actions taken by the Department of State demonstrates the Trump administration's commitment to protecting our national security interest, countering terrorism and enforcing President Trump's call for justice for the Pahalgam attack. Rubio said that TRF and its associated aliases have now been officially added to Lashkar-e-Taiba's designation as both FTO and SDGT under Section 219 of the Immigration and Nationality Act and Executive Order 13224 respectively. The designation amendments will take effect upon publication in the Federal Register. The US earlier reaffirmed a strong support for India's fight against terrorism and the bilateral strategic partnership during the visit of an Indian all-party parliamentary delegation. All right, we are slipping into a very short break. Keep watching DD India.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. We'll go back to our top story. The United States Department of State has designated the Resistance Front, or the TRF, as a foreign terrorist organization and as a specially designated global terrorist. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also termed it as an offshoot of banned terror organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, and India has welcomed the move, calling it a timely and important step. For more on this, we are joined by Ambassador Pinakaranjan Chakravarti, former Secretary MEA. Welcome, sir. Welcome to DD India. Appreciate you giving us your precious time. Ambassador, how significant is the US designation of TRF as a terror group for India's counter-terror diplomacy?
No, I think while it is an important step, I do not think it will have too much of a long-term impact because the head of the octopus, as we say, is the Pakistan army, and they have not been touched at all. So TRF will change to PRF or SRF or something, and it will mutate into another organization, and they will be asked, TRF will be asked to lie low or disappear. See, these are nomenclature changes only, and by calling them, by placing these sanctions or ban, is the US's way of saying, okay, we recognize this, But we are not going to do anything to the real, the real puppet masters, which is the Pakistan army. So that is how I see it, although it is a step that has been welcomed by India officially and may help India in the FATF also, because where Pakistan is again being considered to be placed on the grey list. So these are some of the, I would say, maneuverings that are going on in this domain. And but I do believe that the TRF will simply change its name and become something else, because Pakistan has made it its officially adopted policy of using terrorism against India, because they are unable to do anything otherwise. So I think this is not going to end, and you will suddenly have another terrorist attack, and a new organization will stake its claim. So, we have seen it before, and this is the same story being repeated by the Americans. But that is where we are today.
But as far as the decision is concerned, Ambassador of the United States, does this reflect a growing strategic alignment between India and the US on tackling Pakistan-based terror networks?
Well, we always had a counter-terrorism cooperation. And this is, you can call it a part of that. Okay. But the US does not take this decision simply because India asked them to. They take it on whatever, information, etc. they gather, or their agencies gather on their own. But my point really is that there is little to be gained by banning these organizations, because in any case, they are not going to the United States. But one impact it will have, which is that if the Pakistan army is seen to be financing them or helping them, but we will need evidence of that, then the FATF can consider, because the sanctions do say also that if anybody is found to finance or help or whatever this organization, they will also come under sanctions. So then, I presume that the Pakistan army will now tell this organization ki okay, tum disband kar lo, we will have a new organization which will start the whole effort all over again.
But Ambassador, maybe could this move pave the way for stronger global pressure on Pakistan regarding state-sponsored terrorism? And also, can this decision influence the FATF, Financial Action Task Force, or other international bodies' stance on Pakistan?
Well, what could happen now is that the UN also has a mechanism for designating terrorist organizations and globally recognized terrorists. So if they take it up, then it could happen, something could happen there, where of course we will have to see how Pakistan behaves, because they may like to scuttle it or spoil it or not let it happen. If they do it, then their culpability will be clear. And then, of course, we have China, which has always helped Pakistan to prevent such designations, even at the UN. So I think this is the game that is going on, because Pakistan is a useful tool for these countries to keep India in check, or to keep harassing India. And this is the best tool they have. So they're not going to give it up. So Pakistan will continue to play this game. They will, of course, meet, give them also something in return, so that they are not, the country itself is not designated as a state sponsor of terrorism, and the army also can evade its responsibility. So this is a classic game of proxy war, where using, outsourced terrorist organizations to keep India, as they once said, to make 1,000 cuts against India.
But Ambassador, very quickly, what message does this send to Pakistan, especially when India backs it up with firm language, diplomatic language, instead of vague responses?
Well, I think our response was there in Op Sindoor, and I think Pakistan knows that very well. And they have tried to sort of put put a cover on it saying that, no, we won, etc. Anyway, that's another story. But what will happen now is that the Pakistan army will have to be, I say, somewhat careful. So they will keep quiet for some time and wait for another, when the world has forgotten all this, then they will start all over again. But of course, this time they will have to consider India's reaction as we did in Op Sindhu. So I think it is becoming a little more difficult for Pakistan to carry on with these terrorist activities, but they are so deeply involved in it that to extricate themselves may also be a little bit of a problem. So they have to, the pressure has to be built up. I think the FATF should put Pakistan back on the grey list. That will put more pressure. As it is, Pakistan is under a lot of economic pressure because of its failing economy and is seeking loans, etc., from all over the place. So I think this, as in that specific sense, this step would be a signal.
Yeah, absolutely. India remains committed to a policy of zero tolerance towards terrorism and obviously will continue to work closely with its international partners. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for your insights, Ambassador Chakrabarti.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.